calls are growing louder in the United Kingdom for England and Scotland to boycott the 2026 FIFA World Cup that is set to be co-hosted by the United States in months from now.
The German politician Jürgen Hart has raised the idea of a potential World Cup boycott in a German newspaper.
The 2026 FIFA World Cup is just months away, but instead of excitement, anticipation, and celebration, the build-up is being dominated by backlash, fear, and controversies, primarily due to the political developments happening around.
What was anticipated as a commemoration of the world's most cherished sport transformed into a political earthquake that reverberated far beyond the field. Through a single action, 4 nations were prohibited, visitors from 75 countries were excluded, and Europe initiated openly debating whether it should even take part. The World Cup, an occasion founded on open frontiers and collective enthusiasm, abruptly found itself entangled in executive directives and diplomatic fury. When Donald Trump advocated to host what was advertised as the grandest World Cup in history, global football authorities anticipated filled venues, seamless coordination, and an exceptional moment of international solidarity. Instead, January 15, 2026 delivered an unambiguous statement from Washington State Department. Immigrant visa processing from 75 countries was halted indefinitely, with no exceptions for World Cup supporters. Immediately, anticipation transformed into indignation and allies into opponents. How did a tournament designed to unify nations trigger such resistance? And what transpires when politics confronts head-on with the world's game? The contradiction could not be more pronounced. In December, the president appeared on a global platform and received FIFA's Peace Prize, commended for leadership and collaboration. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, the identical administration was implementing policies that would soon undermine the essence of the world's largest sporting occasion. What emerged throughout the subsequent weeks reshaped how governments, football federations, and supporters began perceiving the 2026 World Cup, not as a collective celebration, but as an escalating political hazard. European authorities discreetly suggested responses that once seemed inconceivable, and nations that had dedicated years of preparation and billions of dollars initiated questioning whether participation in this tournament was worth navigating a landscape of uncertainty. Between December 2025 and January 2026, World Cup planning crossed a threshold. Pressure from Washington escalated. Patience abroad diminished, and countries recognized for their professionalism began to resist. The narrative developing here extends far beyond a single tournament. It indicates a deeper deterioration in America's trustworthiness as a host for global occasions, and to a future where international sport increasingly reflects political fragmentation rather than transcending it. The magnitude of the challenge becomes undeniable once the statistics are presented. On June 4, 2025, the administration issued its initial travel proclamation connected to national security and immigration oversight. 19 countries were placed under complete restrictions, with no visas granted after June 9th. By December 16, 2025, that roster had expanded twofold. 39 nations were now confronting either complete or partial travel prohibitions, and the timing could not have been more disruptive. These measures materialized precisely as World Cup preparations reached their most critical phase, when supporters finalized travel arrangements and federations coordinated logistics. Iran, the initial nation to qualify through Asian competition, experienced the consequences immediately. A complete travel prohibition meant Iranian supporters who celebrated qualification in Tehran, marking a second consecutive World Cup appearance, could no longer attend fixtures in Seattle, New York, or anywhere else across the United States. This setback arrived after Iran had already boycotted the World Cup draw in Miami due to visa rejections for its delegation. When FIFA conducted its elaborate ceremony in December and presented the Peace Prize, Iranian football representatives watched from home, barred by Washington from entering the country. Haiti's circumstances cut even more profoundly. The Caribbean nation secured its first ever World Cup appearance, a milestone 4 decades in development, sustained by generations who never abandoned believing qualification was achievable. That accomplishment was succeeded by a complete travel ban. Haitian supporters now confront an impossible dilemma between missing their team's historic introduction or attempting to observe from outside American boundaries. The logistics render it even harsher. All three of Haiti's group stage fixtures are scheduled within the United States. The opener against Scotland in Boston on June 13th is followed by two additional matches on American territory. Supporters who remained loyal to this team through years of disappointment will be confined to television screens, while vacant seats emphasize their absence. Senegal's experience demonstrates how partial restrictions can be equally destabilizing. The African champions qualified for their third World Cup, building on a celebrated advancement to the quarterfinals in Qatar. Their opening fixture, against France at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey on June 16th, is among the tournament's premier encounters, a confrontation of continental powers. Thousands of Senegalese supporters had already acquired tickets, reserved flights, and organized family journeys before discovering their visa applications could remain unprocessed indefinitely. One supporter summarized the sentiment when speaking to journalists, explaining that Senegalese supporters travel everywhere with their team and that attending the World Cup felt essential. The State Department held a divergent perspective, and that disconnect between expectation and actuality kept expanding. The scope of disruption broadened again on January 14, 2026, when Washington announced a fresh measure affecting 75 countries. Immigrant visa processing was suspended indefinitely under the rationale of enhanced screening for applicants considered likely to become a public burden. Brazil, Colombia, Egypt, Jordan, Morocco, Tunisia, Uruguay, and Ghana were all incorporated into the suspension, and all are World Cup participants. Authorities insisted tourist visas were not directly impacted, but for supporters planning travel, the communication felt unmistakable. Entry into the United States now depended less on enthusiasm for football and more on fluctuating political calculations. FIFA attempted to project assurance. In November, the organization revealed the FIFA Fan Pass system, guaranteeing priority appointment scheduling for match-attending supporters and the deployment of 400 additional consular representatives worldwide to manage visa demand. The president proclaimed that the administration had been instructed to make the 2026 tournament an unprecedented achievement. Then emerged FIFA's own statistics, released in mid-January. Ticket requests had arrived from all 211 member associations, totaling 500 million applications, a record-breaking number, averaging 15 million requests daily throughout the 33-day period. Concealed within the press release was a discreet disclaimer stating that possession of a match ticket does not guarantee admission to the United States, Canada, or Mexico. For families investing thousands on tickets, flights, and accommodations, this transformed the World Cup experience into a wager. Supporters from Ghana, Egypt, or Uruguay could complete purchases and still be left hoping diplomatic relations remain advantageous by June. Hosting a World Cup under those circumstances begins to resemble a geopolitical lottery rather than a global celebration. As the logistical challenges accumulated, the diplomatic consequences accelerated. Germany, a four-time World Cup champion, found itself positioned into the center of the controversy. Drawn alongside Ivory Coast and Curaçao in Houston, New Jersey, and Toronto, Germany became a focal element after a statement on January 19, 2026, from Jürgen Hart, the foreign policy spokesperson for the Christian Democratic Union. He proposed that Germany could boycott the tournament as a final measure to pressure Washington regarding the Greenland matter. That matter involves threats of tariffs against European nations opposing American assertions on Danish territory, alongside rhetoric that refused to eliminate military alternatives. Utilizing the World Cup as leverage would strike directly at one of the tournament's biggest attractions. Polling rapidly demonstrated that this concept was far from marginal. 47% of Germans supported a boycott if the United States pursued control of Greenland, while only 35% opposed it. Nearly half the population expressed willingness to forfeit World Cup participation for a political position. Germany's sports minister refrained from endorsing the suggestion, deferring to the German Football Federation and FIFA. Yet the absence of immediate party opposition spoke considerably. Berlin was treating Washington's stance seriously, and Germany was not isolated. In the United Kingdom, 23 members of parliament from 4 parties, Labour, Liberal Democrats, the Green Party, and Plaid Cymru, signed a motion urging international sporting bodies to consider expelling the United States from major competitions. The terminology was striking: expelling, not suspending or reviewing. The motion referenced recent American military operations in Venezuela and Nigeria and threats involving Greenland, Mexico, Colombia, and Iran. While passage remains improbable, the reality that elected representatives in Britain, frequently described as America's closest ally, formally proposed such a measure marked a historic fracture. The position of Canada and Mexico as co-hosts suddenly gained fresh significance. Each country is scheduled to host 13 of the 104 fixtures, and those locations increasingly resemble sanctuaries. Senegal's third group fixture in Toronto will proceed without visa complications, permitting supporters blocked from entering the United States to attend. Toronto will also host Ivory Coast versus Germany on June 18th, a match likely to attract thousands of supporters redirected northward. The economic and emotional vitality of those supporters will benefit Canadian cities rather than American ones. Mexico's situation is more complex. Despite its position as co-host, it remains under pressure from Washington, including threats connected to tariffs and military intervention regarding drug cartels. Colombia, another qualified nation, received warnings from the United States earlier this year. The political spectacle surrounding the tournament continues to intensify. Concerns extend beyond visas. The administration has not eliminated immigration enforcement operations at World Cup fixtures. Theoretically, immigration and customs enforcement agents could target Haitian supporters whose temporary protected status expires on February 3, 2026. These are individuals who have resided in the United States for years and wish to observe their national team. The possibility of detention at a football match fundamentally transforms what hosting signifies. It shifts the atmosphere from celebration to apprehension. FIFA's position grows more precarious daily. The organization granted hosting rights to a 3-nation partnership and cannot realistically relocate 104 fixtures with 5 months remaining. 500 million ticket applications are already documented. A peace prize has been distributed. Yet the tournament now sits at the epicenter of a diplomatic crisis where qualified nations contemplate boycotts and millions of supporters face uncertainty. The stadiums exist and the infrastructure is established, but physical preparedness is no longer the concern.